I spent years in New York as a private investigator, as an undercover kind of person. And so the first thing is location. I haven't written about New York in a really serious way or as the center of a book in a very long time. And so the idea of going back there is intriguing to me, to return to those streets where I kind of learned my trade, both as an investigator and as a writer, is intriguing. I want to write a real book about police, and I want to write a book that's about corruption in the larger sense. It certainly is about economic corruption, bribes, and all of that. But I want to write a serious book about race. I want to examine, underneath the headlines of what we see from Ferguson and Cleveland and New York and Baltimore and elsewhere, because I think I have a sense of the history of that. I think I have a sense of how the militarization of our police came about how the bad relationships between police and inner city communities, minority communities have come to this point. And so that's fascinating for me to do. I also want to write an even-handed book. I never like to write about silhouettes. This is a bad cop, this is a good cop, I want to write about real people and how they come to where they are and look at the good and the bad of it. There are cops who will do corrupt things who still protect people. They sort of have a line of saying, I want to protect people against this crime. At the same time, I'll take a little money from here. And then these lines get crossed to the point where they don't recognize themselves. Maybe this is too long an answer for the question that you asked me. So I want to take a look at the inner lives of police, You know what some cops do? They'll arrest a drug suspect, right? And then after they arrest him, because the drug, if you bust a guy with drugs, he needs paperwork to show the people that he took the drugs from, that sold him the drugs, because usually they're selling it to him on margin. So let's say I buy a couple of kilos of Coke from you, right? I'm not going to pay you $32,000. I'll pay you $3,000 or $4,000 down, okay? And the rest when I sell it. So now, if that gets arrested, I need paperwork from the cop. I need what's called a 5, an arrest report, a DD-5, to show you, to prove that I didn't just steal the drugs, that it's been arrested. So you'll see criminals beg cops to arrest them. Please, you've got to take me in, because if I don't have that DD-5, I'm going to be killed. So what some cops will do is that they'll write out the DD-5, and then they'll give the suspect the card of a defense lawyer, right? And say, call this guy. Now that defense lawyer kicks back a percentage of his fee to the cop. Then the cop and the defense lawyer will go to a corrupt prosecutor, and the prosecutor will, quote, sell the case. So now the cop gets a percentage of that bribe. So a cop working drugs will make money. He'll steal part of the drugs, okay? He'll write up the DD-5, though, for all of the drugs, so that gets the drug dealer, off his problem with the wholesaler, right? The cop will take some of the drugs and the money from that. Then he'll get a percentage of the defense fee, and he will get a percentage of the bribe to the prosecutor or the judge. So now he is making money on every facet of that arrest. And that's genius. You know, I research this the same way that I research, for instance, the cartel about Mexican drugs. First of all, I have a certain amount of base knowledge, just street experience, you know. I mean, I bribed cops, frankly. So, but then I read history because I'm a big believer in history. I'm a big believer that nothing comes out of nowhere. So I would spend a couple of months or more just researching the history of police corruption in various large cities, and there are shelves of books about that. Then I look at court cases, I look at court documents, you know, trial transcripts, all of those things are important. But really, for this book, it's more a matter of talking to people and being out on the streets. So I talk to a lot of cops. I talk to retired cops. I will talk to convicted cops. I'll talk to what's called internal affairs, which is, you know, the internal police units that investigate corruption. And then I will be out on the streets in Harlem and Washington Heights and those places with undercover detectives and detectives just riding the streets, walking the streets, going into the projects, really living with these people. No, I don't think everyone has his price. I think most people do, you know, but I think it's surprisingly high for most people. My belief is that most people are pretty honest, and most people have a line that they won't cross. But again, I think we walk to that line a step at a time, you know, in whatever world. You know, I've talked to a lot of people, whether it's the drug world or the cop world or whatever, and there were lines they always thought they would not cross and ended up crossing them. But having said that, you know, I've also met the incorruptible people. There's no price for their soul. And I think that people realize that, you know, sometimes I think that we think our soul can be for rent. It isn't. It's always a purchase. You know, once you've sold it, you've sold it, and you can't get it back. And I think some people do realize that, and you know, and won't cross those particular lines. But you know, I've had a number of cops, including cops in internal affairs, tell me that the only reason that they don't steal is for fear of getting caught.